is dramatically different than fair use when it is in fact turned into revenue?
Well, fair use is very context specific and requires weighing a lot of factors, as I'm sure you're aware, Mr. Chairman. And among the factors are the nature of the use, including the extent to which it is commercial or non-commercial. So the courts will look at that as part of the total weighing, but it's not determinative. What the Supreme Court did in the Warhol case was to elucidate a bit further what the relevance was of the commerciality of the use.
Thank you. Thanks for expanding. With that, we go to the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Registrar, for being here today. Really appreciate the importance of this hearing and your testimony today. Judge Moran hit on this earlier, but I want to explore this topic a little bit further. In August of this year, the Copyright Office initiated the NOI, the Notice of Inquiry, to better understand the use of copyrighted works in training AI models. Judge Moran asked, but I want to expand on that a little bit. What is, and I understand the themes, and I know that the time is not yet finished in which people could comment. What are some of the early themes that you're seeing, or the individual comments that come to your mind as some of the early feedback that you're receiving on the NOI?
I can't say that I've read all of the thousands of comments we've received so far, but lawyers in the office are in the process of doing that. My understanding is most of the early comments came from individual creators and artists expressing concerns over what's happening.
Just about the use of AI within their field?
Yes.
Are they making suggestions on how to fix that, or they're just airing grievances?
Let me get back to you with an answer to that question. I will say it's interesting because creators and artists are very much on both sides of the issue in various ways, because I do want to make the point that many of them are using AI as a tool in the creation process and want to be sure they can continue to do that. At the same time, they're concerned about what the impact will be if AI-generated content is competing in the marketplace with their works.
Madam Registrar, do you have any idea on the timing of when the Copyright Office might be able to make recommendations to us or a report to us based on this feedback?
I'd like to say as soon as possible. I know that timing is important here because the technology is evolving very rapidly and its impact is likely to start being felt. We would like to be able to make recommendations in a short time frame. At the same time, we're aware that we are likely to be getting tens, if not hundreds of thousands of comments, and the comment period will end at the end of November. We will need some time to finish analyzing and absorbing and then writing the report, but hopefully it'll certainly be in 2024, and I certainly hope it will be in the first half of 2024.
Thank you. What are some of the most resource-intensive projects that the Copyright Office has on its agenda over the next 6 months? I imagine that's probably one of them. And do you have the resources to appropriately carry out those tasks, taking into account stakeholder comments where applicable and giving them due consideration?
I really appreciate that question. I believe we have the resources to do that at this point. It is true that we find ourselves doing more and more work as the copyright policy issues proliferate these days, and at some point we may need further resources. But at present, we are well equipped to handle the work on our plate.
Thank you for that. And under the MMA, the Copyright Office has an ongoing regulatory authority to promulgate regulations, to implement the law and ensure that proper functioning of the medical licensing collective and its duties, including ensuring it acts as a neutral administrator serving three primary sets of stakeholders: songwriters, publishers, and digital service providers. What steps can the Copyright Office take within its existing authority to improve oversight and transparency of the MLC, particularly as redesignation approaches, I think, in 2025?
We are taking a number of steps in that respect. We hold regular meetings separately with each of the interest groups, with the publishers, the songwriters, the digital service providers, and the MLC itself. We have open rulemakings, and we continue to have an open door for people to raise issues with us. And we will, as you mentioned, commence a public notice asking for input with respect to redesignation starting early next year. But we do think it's very important to make sure that all sides are heard and feel that they're able to participate in the process.
What are some of the issues that are brought up in this I guess this sphere?
Well, the issues are constantly ongoing. So there's, I think in general, the process is working quite well. We do hear questions about perceptions that the board is not balanced because there are more members from the publisher community than the songwriter community. That is something that is set by statute, so that would be an issue for Congress to address.
Okay, and final question. Given the increased usage of name, image, and likeness in the outputs of generative AI, what are your thoughts on how Congress can best understand and legislate on this issue?
This is also one of the issues that we are asking for input on in our notice of inquiry. A few years ago, the Copyright Office did a study on moral rights in the United States, and as part of that study, suggested that Congress might consider enacting a federal right of publicity. There are a number of state laws that could cover the imitation of name, voice, and likeness that is currently taking place using generative AI. But it is a patchwork of different laws in different states. So the question is whether a federal law that might either preempt state laws or at least set a ceiling or floor for what state laws can say would be desirable.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.